to develop recreation trails, cabins, and a variety of other things associated with my program. What I wanted to present today, there's so many things I could talk about when it comes to recreation and trails and cabins and things that we do. I wanted to focus mostly on the Great American Outdoors Act. But in doing that, for folks, a lot of you folks know the Forest Service, you know what we do, you know what our recreation program does. But I do want to kind of take a step back and talk about my program specifically, what we have as far as our inventory of trails and cabins and rec sites, and then start diving into some of the specific things that the Great American Outdoors Act is doing for us here in Cordova to get new trails online, improving existing trails and cabins and rec sites. So this presentation's PowerPoint will walk us through what we do in Cordova for recreation. So, without further ado, just to give folks it's not gonna move, come on. Oh, there, come on, it almost highlighted.
Can you use your arrow?
I'm trying to. I could do that.
Came up earlier. That's funny.
There we go. Okay, so we have two forests in the Alaska region. We have the Chugach National Forest, we have the Chugach National Forest. Cordova is part of the Chugach National Forest. Cordova is the largest of the three districts on the Chugach National Forest, and we're on the eastern side. Obviously no roads into us, unlike the Glacier Ranger District and the Seward Ranger District, which are on the roaded system. But by far we have the most territory, but by far the fewest visitors, other than what we get out on the Copper River Highway. So a lot of the recreation development we do is off of the road system. We have cabins and trails all throughout the district in locations where you can't drive to, but you can boat and fly to. But the thing that's really cool about Cordova is we've got these amazing resources that we have that we provide access to and recreation opportunities for with the Copper River Delta, both the West Copper River Delta, East Copper River Delta, the east side of the Prince William Sound, which is part of the Cordova Ranger District, and the Chugach Mountains, a good chunk of the Chugach Mountains. And they're all areas that we try to provide opportunities for outdoor recreation. My program starts with me as a recreation program manager. I've got a developed recreation program of 4 people right now, recreation planners and operations staff and the like to deal with our develop recreation sites, trailheads, and things of that nature. I have a facilities and quarters and cabins program with a couple of guys that take care of that. We've got our facilities here is part of the program that I manage as well. So like we have that beautiful office building that we own, and I'm part of maintenance on that. We've got a marine warehouse. We've got bunk houses, resident houses, and that type of thing is all part of the program that I manage. And then the trails planning and operations. We normally have roughly about a 5-person crew on trails, and then we supplement that with Student Conservation Association, Alaska Trails. We've had Appalachian Mountain Club in Cordova helping to supplement our trails program, because often we'll have more work than we can actually get done with the amount of miles we have to maintain. But we have a standing crew of about 5 to 6 people. We also have an information education program, primarily in Valdez, which is part of the Cordova Ranger District. We have a information site, a Crooked Creek information site, with a couple folks that operate out of there, which is spectacular. If you've never been to the information site at Crooked Creek, it's worth checking out when you're in Valdez. It's a beautiful little spot, just as you're driving into town on the right-hand side. Just awesome, and really fortunate that we've got this partnership with the city to be able to have that site and provide information to the public. We also have a heritage program that works underneath me here in Cordova, which we have never had in the past. We have a archaeologist and an architect, and that's huge in being able to do a lot of the work that I'm going to describe here, because every time we go out to do anything, we do any kind of dirt turning, we have all the resource programs, fisheries, wildlife, and heritage that have to do their evaluations to be sure that what we're doing doesn't have any impacts to those kind of resource program areas. So trail maintenance. Cordova, as you guys all know, is heavy trail maintenance. Everything we do here, we have to do in a way that can withstand the heavy rains and mud and conditions that we all love to live and work in. So we do a lot of step and run boardwalk, pressure treated woods with trees that we drop to create sills. We do split log bridges all over the place. It's pretty amazing when you think about a mile of trail in Cordova and how much work we do on it with these constructed features compared to anywhere else in the country. Just heavily maintained trails. And rightfully so, they would be hard to walk on if they weren't. They'd be muddy, wet, horrible messes to walk on if we weren't doing this kind of intensive construction. A lot of clearing and brushing at the beginning of the season. We do use rock when you can find it. It's hard to find around here because you have to go through feet of moss, and you never know if you're going to find rock or just, rotten logs. So we use a lot of wood primarily. And the crew gets pretty darn skilled at it too, as far as taking trees, dropping them, and cutting them into usable lumber to do structures. So it's a skill that takes time, and we've got some pretty solid people on the crew that can do that. So we have 46 actual trails on the Cordova Ranger District. That's 111 trail miles. 40 miles of that 111 are actually on the Copper River Highway, accessible to be able to drive to and hike onto. The others are spread out in the deep bays like in Simpson Bay, Sheep Bay, Gravina, Port Gravina, places like that. We also have trails on Montague Island, Hinchinbrook Island, Hawkins Island. A lot of those are 17B trails. Those are easement trails that give the public access over primarily native corporation land onto national forest lands. So we don't maintain those very often. There are some that we do more than others because there's a desire by the public to get to those locations, but many of them we rarely go out and visit. We primarily focus on the road-based trails. And with that, how we pay for that, a lot of it, every year we get appropriated dollars. Every time the budget is passed, we get a little bit that comes down through USDA to the Forest Service, down through the regions, down to our district level to be able to do annual maintenance. But we also depend on a lot of funding from outside of the appropriated chain. Recreation Trails program, Legacy Roads and Trails, Security School Title II, and GAOA, which we'll dive into more. Cabin maintenance and construction, just like with everything we do in Cordova, it takes a lot of effort to get out to most of our cabins. We fly, we boat, and we fly and boat to cabins that some are just fairly small and unimpressive. Others, like San Juan Bay cabin, it's a pretty impressive cabin and takes a lot of time and energy to maintain. This is the foundation that we put in for Martin Lake Cabin. You see Dana Smike and Bob Behrens and a few other people standing on that. That was back in 2007 when we first built that cabin. And then we had snowpocalypse in 2011-12, which destroyed that cabin. We're actually building that cabin again this summer finally. We've got a crew going out in June to build it from the ground up again, a brand new cabin out there. So that's pretty exciting. So boat in, fly in, some hike in, but really there's only 3 cabins. Oh, well, actually, so we have 3 cabins right now that are offline. That's Martin Lake Cabin, McKinley Lake Cabin, and Port Chalmers Cabin. Martin Lake Cabin, we're going to be building this summer. McKinley Lake Cabin, if you guys know McKinley Lake Cabin, it's the end of the McKinley Lake Trail. That cabin has just been really tough to keep up and running. It's a mildewy mess. The way that cabin was designed, it just holds moisture like you wouldn't believe. And it's really gotten to the point where it's not really habitable anymore. So we're going to be building a new cabin on that trail as well to replace the existing cabin. And then Port Chalmers Cabin, which is out on Montague Island, the roof blew off of that a couple years back, but it was literally like 65 years old and had been moved there, had been moved twice actually. It was moved there from a location it had been moved to originally. So it was due to be replaced. It worked out well with the funding we've got online. So we're going to build a new cabin out there. But one road access cabin, which is the trail cabin at McKinley Lake Trail. And then we've got 3 trail accessible cabins. So we've got, what do we have? We have Power Creek Cabin, we have the shelter, and then and then the lake cabin, the ones you can hike to. And again, the same kind of funding stream that we're able to put into action to be able to maintain these cabins, with one exception, the Permanent Trust Fund. So every time you go out to use one of our cabins and you pay your $60 to stay there for the night, that money comes right back to that cabin. It's one of the few things you can do where you pay money to the federal government where you know how it's going to get used. And that's the only way it can get used. I have to do annual reports on how I spent that money for that specific cabin to be able to justify where that money went. So you know, every time you do pay, it goes to those cabins. Develop a dispersed recreation site and maintenance. So we've got multiple locations on the Copper River Highway. Primarily, the three big ones are, as you all know, as you're driving out the road, you've got Eek River Rec Site Boat Launch, and then you've got the Alleganic Recreation Site Boat Launch, and then you've got 22 Mile, which is another boat launch onto the upper end of Alleganic. Those are probably the three big ones on the roadway. And then we have other sites, 18 Mile, One-Eye Pond. We have trailhead sites where you can do day-use recreation, like at Sheridan Glacier at the parking lot there. But most of the sites that we have, the idea behind how we designed them years ago, before I ever came out of the district, was this enclave idea. We wanted to develop recreation sites that were access points to go further out into the woods, right? Not building everywhere. The Forest Service managing the Copper River Delta has to do it under a congressionally mandated process through ANILCA. It's managed for fish and wildlife and their habitat primarily. So everything we do for trails and recreation and roads has to be looked through that lens. So if it has any adverse effects of fish, wildlife, and habitat, we might not be able to build that road, trail, rec site, cabin. Yeah, that's very different than most places you go with the Forest Service. But anyhow, like I said, trailheads, obviously we do a lot of information education with the public. We're doing a lot more of these types of structures out there too, to get people off of the mud and ground up on tent platforms. We've got multiple locations in the future here. In the near future, we're going to be building more hardened sites at our recreation sites. And then we do still have Child's Glacier Campground, 48 miles up the Copper River Highway. That now has 2 washouts you got to get through to be able to get up there. But one of the things that we've been working on, and actually Troy knows this very well through the Recreation Aviation Foundation, we've been improving a landing strip on the far side of the $1 Million Bridge to allow aircraft to land there and access the campground. And right now it's more of a Super Cub landing spot, maybe a larger Cessna, but we're trying to get to the point where you can land a Beaver up there if that's an opportunity for folks. So we have, like I said, we've got the 3 main boat launches, a variety of day-use sites throughout the Copper River Highway, overnight camping primarily at Child, which if you can get up there, overnight camping is still an awesome thing to do, Alleganic and then 18 Mile. And again, the funding sources are very similar across the board. And then Crooked Creek. So this is what it looks like. It's a Panabo cabin. We have a 25-year lease with the city of Valdez. We worked hand in hand with them to purchase and build the structure out there specifically to have an interpretation and information hub for the public. We were originally going to share this with a variety of other entities, and everybody backed out at the last minute. And Forest Service, we just moved forward and said, well, we're still a partner, and we ended up taking over the whole space. So we've got, like I said, 2 interpreters there that do a variety of things. There's weddings there. There's multiple weddings every summer there. Children's groups coming in from the nearby schools to do education. The interior of the building we recently renovated, and it's just fantastic. Great information in there. We use a lot of local volunteers and interns to support our 2 primary people, Jeannie Kirkland on the right and Bonnie Thea on the left, who have been there. They've been living there, I don't know, Wendy knows them really well. 35, 40 years they've been living there. Yeah, working the site, so yeah, they're pretty amazing couple of folks. So yeah, again, great interior displays. We also have a bookstore there with a Copper River Watershed as a partner, providing a variety of things for people to purchase. Yeah, just really fantastic location. Wish we could duplicate that here in Cordova somehow. Pretty cool opportunity. Okay, so how do we fund all these things? Great American Outdoors Act, more recently, is a big part of how we fund project work. This is a 5-year funding program, started in 21, so going through 25, and the idea behind it was it was all part of a variety of different legislation that came out in 21 to support infrastructure that has been run down and not dealt with for many, many, many years. We had a huge backlog of deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance meaning that anytime you have a backlog of annual maintenance you're not getting to, it starts to become deferred maintenance. And we've had deferred maintenance throughout the Forest Service, Park Service, BLM, for different recreation and outdoor recreation opportunities that's just gotten out of hand. So the decision was made to allocate funding, have all these entities determine what their needs are, including deferred maintenance requirements, and make these proposals for funding. And the Forest Service, BLM, Park Service all had their own funding streams that they would pull from. And there was pretty heavy criteria on what would pass approval. And part of that was public input. So maybe you all remember, maybe not, you were a part of, but there were opportunities for all these Great American Outdoors Act projects from the members of the public to chime in on what they thought about it, if they thought it was a good project or not, even provide ideas of what they felt would be a better project or additional projects. There'll be more opportunity for that coming up. There's a good chance this act might be funded again for another 5 years. That's kind of going through the process right now. We are getting ready to propose additional projects for another potential 5 years, and there'll be a chance for the public to go online and find out what's being proposed and provide their comments. Another really heavily relied on funding source for Cordova is the Secure School Title II funds that come to us through originally timber receipts, but it's being funded through other things now. That is primarily used for existing infrastructure to deal with deferred maintenance. It also is heavily related to roads and trails maintenance and decommissioning, and then resource damage repair, so riparian resources, stream bank restoration, anything having to do with fish habitat is a big part of it. In fact, the funds that are approved, 50% of the funds that go out towards project have to support some type of fisheries and wildlife habitat restoration. And then the bipartisan infrastructure law, the bill. This is really cool. This came out. All of these funding sources come from legislations that do a million other things. This is just one part of what they do. It gets really complicated. I'm not going to dive in too deep on any of that. But this is really cool. The bipartisan infrastructure law came out. It does all kinds of things, if you've heard of it. One thing that it didn't necessarily do, but our wonderful legislator, Lisa Murkowski, was able to peel out $20 million for Alaska, specifically for rebuilding and building new public use cabins. And we identified 25 cabins throughout Tongass and the Chugach National Forest that we wanted to build. Cordova got 2 of them, which is pretty awesome. We got 2 of the 25 cabins here in Cordova. So that is pretty fantastic. She was able to peel out $20 million, but you know the way the federal government is, people were slapping it off. So we ended up with only $14.5 million, but still. Okay, so this is some of the work we've been doing. So Heney Ridge Trail was one of our GAOA projects that we have worked on. Again, the funding we got started in 21, and we're in 24 now. So we've done a lot of work already with the funding that we got. The Heney Ridge Trail, we built, we originally laid that out in 96. It was finally built in 2001. And we've gone back to replace a lot of the structures that probably weren't designed as well as they could be. So a lot of step and run, boardwalk, that type of thing. And flying material in, that's a big part of our cost is we use like Steve Richards here locally and others will fly material in. But that's a big cost, paying for material and flying it on site. Another one is Sand Trail, and if you all know where Sand Trail is at, it's at 9 Mile on the north side of the road, gives access the Scott Valley. It's our only motorized trail that we have on the district. And the first mile of it follows Scott River, and Scott River is slowly eating into our trail. So we had to do a huge amount of rerouting away from some of this area that's eating away from it. Kind of incidentally, we just recently got funded through the RAC, part of the Rural School Title II Fund, to do some in-stream work to hopefully get the Scott River to not continue to eat into our trails. So that's something we're hopefully going to implement next year, and we hopefully won't have to worry about this anymore. But we live on a delta. We live on a glacial delta. It's going to do whatever it wants to do. So it's always a constant battle. And there you go. That's what it was looking like 3 years ago, starting to take out our trail. And then cabins. We have been working on multiple cabins. This is Hook Point Cabin. It's our only A-frame cabin. This is out on Hingebrook Island at Hook Point. We did a massive amount of renovation work, interior and exterior, new outhouse hole, which is probably one of the things we do best is building outhouses, I think. We love outhouses before. Yeah. This is Logjam Bay Cabin. This is out on Montague Island. This is actually a historic cabin. This is one of the original Panabo designs when they started making Panabo cabins. And I don't know enough about it, but I've been out there with people who do, and there's certain little things, if you've ever been out there, how the logs were, the notches in the logs and how they lay, that get heritage folks really excited about this cabin. So, but massive renovation on this, and it's looking pretty good these days. And then EAC boat launch, that was also a GAOA funded project. It was also a project we got flat funding for, Federal Lands Access Program dollars, that we partnered with the Native Village of EAC in order to get those funds to do a bunch of renovation there as well. As you know, if you've been by there recently, we're reworking the ramp a little bit. The design, I guess, was not as well thought out, and when the ramp was laid out 2 years ago, when all the construction work happened, it was about 1.5 feet too high. So the shoulder seasons, when people want to launch boats on that ramp for the last couple of years, you wouldn't be able to float a boat off of your trailer. 80% of the season you could, but there was those shoulder seasons, and often that's when everybody wants to be out there too, right? Everybody wants to go subsistence fishing and duck hunting and things like that. So I think probably the end of next week, the Wilson Construction's out there working on it right now. They'll be done, it'll be dropped to get 2 feet down, and it should be just fine. But anyhow, this is a fantastic project as well. What you see right there in the foreground is a accessible ramp for folks with mobility issues to be able to get on your boat, and then you launch them into the water. And as I was saying, the $1 Million Bridge aircraft landing area and child space campground projects that we've been working on the last several years. Troy's very familiar with this. This is just an amazing, you all probably been out there, I imagine, when you used to be able to drive out there, or maybe more recently when you can fly or boat out there. This was like a gem as far as recreation goes for the Cordova Ranger District and Chugach National Forest in general. This location was in Alaska Magazine as the, how did they word it, as the #1 must-see site in Alaska, right before we had the road washout. So it was pretty disheartening. People tried to come and see it, and they just couldn't get there, you know. And it's just as amazing as it ever was. It stopped calving for a few years, and it started calving again, and it's been very actively calving for the last several years. So in order to get people out there, we and others have partnered with the Recreation and Aviation Foundation to do a massive amount of improvement on what was kind of a makeshift Super Cub landing strip, and to turn it into a real landing area for aircraft. More work is still to come. This summer, there's going to be some additional work done on site. We're hoping to have a piece of equipment up and running out there to do some work on the sides of this landing area so that wing clearance is a little bit better. A storage unit is planned to be out there this summer for equipment to be stored. And anyhow, I can't thank Troy enough. He's one of the main guys that's been working on this, making this beautiful location accessible again to the public.
So is that the old road bit?
That is the old road bit, exactly. And what we're running into, as you remember, the span you're looking at with the $1 Million Bridge, when that was lifted back into place, that was the layout area for all the equipment and materials. And so it was pretty open, you know, whereas the rest of the road is super grown in. So it really lent itself to it. There's a lot of talk about where to put it, right, Troy? We're talking about doing it on the near side of the $1 Million Bridge. There's concerns about the winds being right for this landing area, but I think all in all, it's been the best choice for a location. So, and along with that project, we've been doing a bunch of brushing and clearing at the Child Pleasure Campground, the roads, the trails, because again, we don't have equipment up there, you know, we can't drive there, and so things as far as deferred maintenance will really start to pick up. So we've had
frozen fast.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I I was doing some road survey work with one of the engineers of some funky little roads off of the Copper River Highway where it's between the second washout and between the first washout and the second washout. And I dropped off a couple ATVs with one of the engineers last year because we needed to motor around to look for those so he could find them to tick them off the list. Really, it's what it was, because we're not going to be using them anymore. And even with an ATV, it was narrow driving that section of road. It's really crazy how it's almost gone. And huge drifts over sections of it, silt and sand drifts over sections of it. It's disappearing for sure. Okay, so FY24 projects, fiscal year 24. So this year, what we're hoping to do is start planning and implementing. These are all the projects we're hoping to get done. Most of these are Great American Outdoors Act projects. Some of them are BIL projects. There's a sprinkling of secure rural schools, but primarily it's Great American Outdoors Act. So the Allegheny Slough Recreation Area, we have plans to do a covered structure out there and then do a bunch of improvements to the existing sites and a little bit of work on the boardwalk and the large observation deck. We need to do a little bit of work on that as well. But probably the biggest, coolest thing about that is we want to put a covered structure out there, and we're actually replacing the vault outhouse toilet as well. That vault that's in place right now is floating and slowly rising. If you go out there and look, the slab of concrete has been every year going up a little more, a little more, a little more. So yeah, so we're going to tear that out and put in a new vault toilet. So we're also doing additional toilets at 18-1 and One Eye Ponds. We have these little, they're basically just pit toilets, and we're going to put little mini vault toilets. You guys know the vault toilet we have out at Skater's Cabin, the one that the city built out there. It's going to look just like those. We're going to have one at each 18 mile and One Eye Pond. 22 mile, we're going to do another covered structure out there that's identical to the one that's already out there. And then we're going to do some work on the boat launch. Not really much. We're going to bring some additional material and compact. It's just going to be a gravel launch, but we're going to do a little bit of work on that as well. And then mile 10, the donut. Have you ever wondered why there's a hole in that building out there? That big opening. What's that?
Why?
You ever wondered about that? So when that was initially designed and built, it was supposed to represent a nest, like a goose nest or the like. And initially, we had planned to have a sculpture in the middle in that rocky patch that would just get rained on and look beautiful with water washing off of it. But probably the worst design to put out in our windy, rainy, wet location. So our plan is to have a complete roof out there and then as you look at those sidewalls out there, enclose it just a little bit more. So you still have the view looking south, you still have the view looking north, but you'll be more protected, and we're going to put a couple picnic benches in there so people can use it as a day use site as well. So we want to make it more of it'll still have interpretive signage like it does now. In fact, we've got funding to replace all those, but it'll be more of a day use recreation site as much as it was a wildlife watchable site is what it was originally designed as. Yak boating site we've already talked about, Tallahassee Recreation we talked about. And then the big ones are Port Chalmers Cabin, Martin Lake Cabin, Mile 18 Road Cabin, and McKinley Lake Cabin, all coming online over the next couple of years. And then we have additional trails that we're still working on. We've done a bunch of trail work because that was easy to lead out on when we got the money and we're told, well, how quickly can you put this money in effect? And that was a big deal when this money came down. They want to see successes right away, and trail work is one of the easiest ways to do it because there's always tons of work to do on trails, and so we threw our initial dollars and effort into that. So we still have a handful more trail work to do. And the cabins through Bill and GAOA, again, it's just really exciting to have money for cabins. It's not something that comes along very often, especially building new cabins, and it's amazing that we're able to get this done. So again, you can kind of see I've got McKinley Lake Cabin and Mile 18 Cabin twice.
It looks like the same.
Yeah, that's actually McKinley Lake Cabin. So we don't have that cabin yet. These cabins do exist in the world, but Mile 18 doesn't actually exist yet. So Mile 18 Cabin, and now, so this is a project proposal location that has gone through the process, but I'll tell you, we're kind of taking a step back from this now because that road that you see that goes by Holbrook and Snag, so that lower, I wish I had like a pointer, that lower pond there that you see the fish pond and FS,
Here.
that's Holbrook Pond. Oh, do I got one right there? Oh, look at that. So that's Holbrook and that's Snag. And our deal was that we're gonna have this cabin right at the southeast end of Snag Lake. However, we are in the process now of realigning this road here outside of multiple stream crossings where we have spawning habitat, spawning salmon. There's 4 locations where the road goes right through spawning habitat. So we've got funding in place, and we're hoping next year we're gonna move the road out of there. And once we do that, the reason we put the cabin here is just because it was the best place to put it because of the road we had. Now that we're moving the road, we're probably gonna put the cabin somewhere over here. And it's out in the sun, great views. This site wasn't as good of views, but this is something that'll go back out to public comment, and the public will be able to provide their thoughts on it as well. The other potential is right over here as well. This was a project location when we went through this whole process that we threw out to the public, and I don't think there was a single person that thought that was a bad idea. Yeah. So,
Is that down Boulder Valley? Or?
yes, exactly. Yep. So as soon as you go down Boulder Alley, there's a knob to your right that kind of overlooks the lake. That's the spot we were thinking.
You know, that 18-mile one, I mean, you're right next to the bear feeding trough at 17 mile there.
That's true. Yeah.
Good bear watching spot.
Yeah. So once we get the road shifted over, then we're gonna reassess where this cabin might go. But that area provides this type of activity that people can do, is how we've been justifying, you know, the variety of recreation opportunities, both winter and summer, and access to you know, sport fishing and the like, great views, all that kind of stuff. And then McKinley Lake Cabin. So this is showing the original location from McKinley Lake Cabin. What we want to do is one of the big pushes for these cabin projects that allowed us to get the funding is make them more accessible to the general public. So cabins that were being proposed are right on road system or in existing campgrounds got funded right away. Cabins that are more remote and things that you have to fly or boat to, not so much. So we proposed this cabin, and so that's one thing. The other thing is, if you've been back here, this is a dark, dank little hole. It's just miserable. And boating into it at the wrong lake level, it's just a mud flat you gotta walk through. It's just not a great spot. So we are going to build a cabin just before the Pipeline Lakes Trail enters into McKinley Lake Trail, right there.
Oh, that'll be nice.
That's where the cabin will go. So we're right on the lake shore. The idea behind this is that these beautiful views, it's out in the sun, it's this nice gravel beach line here. A lot of folks, what they like to do to access McKinley Lake is they like to take a wrong-way slough, and you can go with the current all the way to the lake with a paddle board, with a kayak, and you can go right to the cabin and then back out again.
So will you maintain the trail to the mine?
Yes, we'll still maintain the trail to the mine, absolutely, yeah, so that'll all remain. But we'll just decommission that existing cabin, remove it all.
Is pipeline just getting worse, or do you have to move it? I know there was some land issues there, so is that getting relocated?
Oh, the beginning of Pipeline Lakes Trail.
Yeah.
So we've requested, Wendy's talking about some heritage concerns about that location. If you don't know, that was one of the primary village sites for the native Eyak people. And so there's some heritage concerns where Pipeline Lakes Trail takes off from the highway. I think we're likely gonna be okay to leave it there, yeah. I think the thought on that is it would do more damage to move the trail, potentially creating more issues rather than solving any issues. So I think it's gonna stay.
Will there be signs or something? I mean, that,
Interpretive signs for?
yeah. I mean, I never knew that. I hiked up there a few times.
Oh, about the village site?
Yeah.
You know, there is one sign at the very beginning. It's very small. When you first come up on top of from the trailhead, you know, you park on the outside of the road, go up the trail. As soon as you get to that first top bit, there's a small little sign. And it talks about just being sensitive to the fact that there's heritage. Yeah, I forget exactly what it says.
It wasn't really the village, it was the graveyard site.
Yeah, that's what's there, but that was a village site as well.
Long before.
Yes, Yes, yeah.
Because I remember seeing pictures from the 1930s of the village that have remained, and they were more on that, you go around the curve and down, you know.
Oh, yeah,
just
right.
on the right, just before you get to the current mile 22 site
Yeah.
is where I thought the main village always was.
Yeah.
But it's
So,
maybe it didn't.
kind of in that, and I probably shouldn't say too much, I'm not supposed to say too much about where existing sites are at, but there are some native, you know,
So is that a
old,
great-
like old depressions, there were structures in that area, things like that, yeah.
Well, the very trailhead there is that CEM, abbreviation for cemetery.
Yeah, exactly.
And right under Allegany, ABAND.
Abandoned,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So originally, so the native corporations were allowed to select public lands, right? After Ainska and Anilka. They only had so much land they could select and get conveyed, and they overselected, and that's still going through a process through the overselection. But the one thing that wasn't limited on is determining anything that has a significant heritage concern. And the amount of acreage is unlimited. And so they're still going through a process of identifying those areas, and there's many, many, many of them. So when they originally identified this area, they identified an area that took in the cabin, our 22-mile rec site, all the pipeline. They identified a massive area. And then they whittled it down to a very, very small area, realizing that just really wasn't feasible. So it's definitely a collaborative, cooperative relationship. And all the reasons why this cabin, we feel is a great site to be able to build a new cabin. And I think the thing that I personally think about for any of these cabin sites is year-round use, right? Winter use as well as summer use. I mean, if we're gonna take all the time and energy to build an amazing cabin, we wanna do it in a location where people are gonna wanna go for winter recreation as well, and this would be an amazing winter recreation location.
How much closer to on the trail?
So it'll end up being about a mile from the trailhead, a little more than a mile from the trailhead, the new cabin. A lot less far to walk, but still, it's a mile to walk, yeah, yeah. Oop. Oh, look at that, now they are working. Okay, Port Chalmers cabin. That's the old cabin site right there. And it was problematic. I mean, this little bay here, Dave Jagger, you probably know about that.
Oh, yeah.
Most low tides, your boat would be dry sitting there in front of the cabin. You couldn't park your cabin in front, your boat in front of the cabin. You had to park way out here, go ashore and hike all your stuff to the cabin. So that was kind of a pain. It's also not really well situated for the type of activities most people want to do, which is deer hunting. A lot of people want to go out there and deer hunt, or they want to go fish, or whatever they might want to do. So instead of rebuilding it there, we were moving the cabin over here. And this is just an amazing location. The views out are spectacular. It's got this great deep landing spot, gravel beach, easy access to the uplands, and then deer hunting and other activities. This is all open muskeg back up in here.
That creek right there was one of the ones from that big salmon project through the Science Center, so.
Oh.
Boy, I sat on that beach a lot.
Yeah.
Anchored out in front of it, it is a very nice access,
Yeah.
location spot.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, our concern with that, so we've got it well away from the stream too, where the site is that we selected. And I know, this is very popular for the commercial fishing fleet too, they spend a lot of time in there.
So we get rural preference, that's gonna be a hot spot for Anchorage.
Yeah, as far as, you're right. So, this is Green Island, and we got Green Island Cabin over in Gibbons Anchorage. That gets over 200, out of the year, over 200 nights a year that's rented,
Wow.
which is pretty amazing for a remote cabin.
That's because it's only one cabin.
It's only the one cabin. This will, I'm sure, will be just as popular. Yeah.
Yeah, I tended to find the whole time we were in there, the commercial fleet was mainly out at the point. Didn't see them back up in there that often.
When I was there in July, we're doing some additional survey work. There were 3 boats in here, and they were definitely jockeying around, like like
But
very
you're
territorial.
there in the fall, so it might be the more in the spring
Yeah,
openers.
yeah.
Mm.
Anyhow, that, I'm really excited about that one, and the fact that it's still remote, the way we were able to justify getting the funding for this is, again, Green Island Cabin getting that much use, we're able to say, well, this will certainly, I don't imagine it siphoning off use away, I just think it's gonna be additional use, honestly.
Isn't it kind of rocky going in there?
There is a bit of rock, you're right, and just on the other side of the island here, there's some rock right here, but it's pretty clear right through
Yeah.
here.
Charts
What'd you
are
say,
good.
Dave, or?
Charts are good and,
Charts are good.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely some rocks that go underwater at high tide.
Isn't that more like Stockdale?
You got me. Not really Fort Chalmers anymore. We're gonna have to change the name. You know what I wanna call it? I wanna call it, you guys might all know Dana Smike. I wanna call it the Dana Smike Cabin. In honor of Dana Smike, all the cabins that he's built and maintained over 30 years. Yeah, I think once we build it, we might
It
rechristen
was
it.
referred to as Gilmore Creek,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
the creek that was there. And or in my log, I put it as North Chalmers, and where the
Oh,
other
yeah.
cabin was, it just say South Chalmers.
Okay. And again, all the pretty amazing things you can do out of here as well. And it's a surprisingly protected little harbor with the kind of broad view you have. It's
Mhm.
still really protected.
Yeah, I wrote out quite a few things. That little island that's in there, you can tuck up pretty close to that for any southerly things coming in,
Nice.
which is pretty rare.
Yeah, and you look at that beach line, it's not like a lot of debris. I mean, all the
Mhm.
signs you would normally see on a heavily,
Mhm.
beat up beach, it's
Mhm.
not there. Yeah.
There's some uncharted rocks in there,
There is?
yeah.
Okay.
I've got an old rock to prove it.
A dog-eared old prop. And finally, Martin Lake Cabin, which we are building this year finally after so many years. I'm not joking, I get calls every summer about this cabin still, all these years later. And then I've told a few folks that have, they were, the last time they were in Cordova, last time they were in Alaska, is in that cabin, telling me to tell them once it's up and running so they can come back to Alaska. And they don't want to come to Alaska any other reason than go to Martin Lake Cabin, which is crazy. I mean, whatever experience they had was like none other, but it is a pretty cool place.
Dave, how long has it been out of commission?
It's been out of commission since the winter of 2011-12, so it wasn't online to the public in the summer of 2012.
Oh, I thought it
Yeah.
was longer than
So it was going in the same place,
What's that?
well, same place where the other one was.
Going to the exact same place. So we had multiple engineers out there who were thinking, well, if we're gonna build a new cabin, should we move it to another place? So we looked all along the shoreline. And then we actually looked out here, which is just no good place out here. So this is really the shoreline we focused on. Honestly, that is by far the best place where we put it. And that was Dana again, because it was in some hole over here. And Dana on his own went, I don't know, this looks like a good spot. It turned out to be the only spot to put it back in. Yeah.
The one down by, Little Soft Tuck?
Yeah, yep.
This
Yeah.
is the only recreation on the East Cobb River Delta.
I consider that on the Gulf.
It is.
You gotta say things in a way that those funders go, oh, God, well, we gotta fund that. So, no, you got me there. That would be East Delta too, but I'm calling that Gulf of Alaska.
Whatever gets better funding, it's.
So some other projects, as we already talked, sorry, go ahead.
Speaking of that soft tub cabin, what's the condition of that one?
It's in sad condition.
I was
Yeah.
thinking, it is a coastal.
Yeah, it's
It's
pretty
not-
beat up. Back in the day when we were just building cabins as we wanted to, we didn't have to ask permission, we just went to build them. That can't do that anymore. That cabin's sitting on styrofoam. It's on a styrofoam foundation, because it was lightweight, you can throw it into a plane, right, fly it out there along with the lumber, you can do it in easy plane loads. But it's been there forever like that, it worked just fine on a styrofoam foundation. But that's one of the things we would probably wanna do is, rebuild the foundation. The building itself is okay, it's not like uninhabitable and a tear down, but yeah, it's looking rough.
Kind of long haul.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's a hard place to, yeah, spend many, many winters. As you know, you're just around the corner. So anyhow, yeah, again, Allegany Slough Recreation Area and the work we're gonna do there, already kind of talked about that, but that's coming up. So where we're at with this is we're doing design planning this year, and we're hopefully gonna get everything ready to go over the winter, to contract out the work next summer. Same thing with mile 10 and 22 mile. The hope is to have everything ready to go, whether we contract it out next summer or the following summer. We want to have everything in place to be able to do that, but we're also still working on design and contract packages for these things. And then this project, which is fantastic, we're working on NEPA right now. We're going to end up doing a CE on this, going out to the public very soon for public comment, and then hopefully have a signed decision to move forward on this, hopefully next spring. And, oh no, what am I looking at? Sand Trail, I'm sorry. The next one is, I'm sorry. They all look the same. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. You're probably looking at me going, what are you talking about, Dave? Sorry, Sand Trail. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where we had to do a bunch of reroutes away from the Scott River west shore. So the plan is to put multiple barbs into the bank, sticking out into the Scott River to cause the flow to deflect off away from the shoreline there. And it's a tricky thing because of hydraulics. I mean, it's hard to know what things are going to do over time, but it's kind of the best we can do right now. There's some very clear points here that our engineers have determined would be the most likely places to put barbs and do that. Along with it, there's locations where it makes sense to do a little bit of riprap in places as well, so we're going to do some additional bank reinforcement along with these barbs.
Is that like a pilot?
No, so the barbs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to look like, but there was a couple of designs the engineers were looking at. One of them was using logs and root wad and embedding those into the embankment and having those stick out, and then you have to cable them down. It's a little bit cheaper. Or doing riprap, literally having to dig down into the riverbed and into the embankment and set them down several feet and build them up from there and then out into the stream. Yeah. But the problem with this is that we get off of this whole length of trail is on the highest ground around. We drop off of this. This is all saturated, low-lying terrain. And the only way to really have a viable motorized trail for ATVs would be literally build a boardwalk. Or we move the trail over to back over to 7.5 mile, the golf course. And the problem with that is people are driving in and out of spawning and rearing habitat, and we're trying to get people away from that. The solution to that, if we had to go do that eventually years down the line, because again, it's a glacial outwash plain, it's going to do what it wants, would be to put in potentially bridges that are, lightweight bridges that we can actually install and pull out again. There's, what's it called? It's like a fiberglass type material, FPR, fiber polymer reinforced material. Super strong, super lightweight. It's a really common trail and ATV, both pedestrian ATV trail material for bridges that you can assemble and then just fly wherever you want to put them.
Carbon
Yeah.
fiber.
Like a carbon fiber, exactly. Yeah. And so something, because you build anything out in this outwash plain, chances are in a few years it's going to be wrong. So something that can be actually removed and replaced somewhere else would be ideal. These are all ideas our engineers have been talking about that might work.
Yeah, and then a couple of years later, it diverts the other way.
Yeah. And that's really the problem here. I mean, you look at where our trail is and you look what the Scott's doing, it's bulging this way. It wants to go that way. So, I mean, it's a bit of a battle. And then 18 Mile Road, this should have been done a long time ago. This road has been kind of underused. We've been going through a process over the last 10 years to try to maintain it into a usable route for Dispersed recreation, we've got a little, right here at Holbert Pond, there's a road that doubles back right here, and we've got a little tent platform and picnic area there. We want to do more of that kind of stuff, allow people to have kind of dispersed recreation opportunities out here. Real low maintenance, small infrastructure. But anyhow, we don't want people driving in and out of spawning streams, so the idea is right here this is where the first crossing is, just pull it over to the west, and this is great ground, and just bring it all the way up and around to this point, avoiding all of these crossings.
Is that kind of behind the dump there? I mean-
Yeah, it dumps over here, yeah.
Okay. Didn't they do a moose habitat thing there?
They did, yeah, a hydroax, yep, that's all this, right here was hydroax. And I think out here was hydroax too. The native, so you get to this point right here, you get on the corporation land, so that's the boundary right there with the Forest Service.
That's why we can't come in the other way?
Right. We're in the process of looking at establishing an easement though that would connect us all the way through and potentially all the way to Sheridan Lake. So that's something that's in the works right now.
When I was a kid, we used to drive back there and go on moose hunting. Dad would go back there,
Mhm.
the truck. There's military roads,
Oh,
old
okay.
army roads.
I know that there's a lot of people that love bunny hunting around in here. There's tons of bunny rabbits. Oh, sorry.
Oh, good to know. Never been down that road.
Oh, yeah, right. And I just want to finish this PowerPoint on the fact that, you know, a lot, especially trail work, any of the work that we do, it's all these young, excited, strong, young folks that get a lot of the work done. And it's horrible weather out there most of the time, and they're all happy and willing to get out there and do the work, right? I mean, I sit in my office in front of my computer hatching all these plans, and they're the ones who go out and do them. So, yeah, I just...
Hip parade, hip parade.
Yeah. Anyhow, for me, the pleasure is working with these young people because it keeps me kind of excited and into what I'm doing, seeing how excited they are. So that's all I have for the PowerPoint.
Awesome, thanks. Very good.
Am I going long?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
7:55.
I did want to just show you one other thing. With the Great American Outdoors Act, it's really scrutinized heavily how we spend the money, what we're spending it on, if we're progressing, if we're actually getting the work done we said we're going to do. So I have quarterly checks that I have to report out on every single project, whether we got anything done or not. And that's fed into a database that's fed into a public-facing site where anybody can go see if we're getting the work done or not. So I just wanted to share that with you all.
And there's no password to get into the site?
Nope. Let's see, so if I go here, it should be here somewhere.
Yeah, at the top. Reach
Oh,
up.
there it is, yes. Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So this video was done after the first year that the act was implemented. So this is after the 2021 season.
First anniversary of the Great American Outdoors Act.
Oh, no.
First anniversary of the Great American Outdoors Act. Take a few minutes to learn what this means for Alaska's national.
Okay.
Broke it.
I think it's this. Try it now.
Yeah.
Oh, disconnect the
August marks the first anniversary of the Great American Outdoors Act. August marks the first anniversary of the Great American Outdoors Act. Take a few minutes to learn what this means for Alaska's national forests, the Chugach and Tongass, which are the traditional homelands of Native peoples here in Alaska. Let's check in with some of our Forest Service experts. What projects are happening now?
We have trail crews up on the Cordova Ranger District. They're working on Henning Ridge, McKinley Lake, Sand and Lake Elsner trails. There's also a crew working on the Glacier Ranger District, and they're addressing a lot of backlog maintenance needs on Winter Creek and Upper Winter Creek trails. And then here locally in Juneau, we've got a trail crew that's making improvements to the Windfall Lake, Akmu, and the East and West Glacier trails.
How do we decide which projects get priority for funding?
We look at things like maintenance needs at the site, visitor access and experience, safety, economic benefits the project will bring, and the interest in the project by members of the public.
Which projects will take a longer time to complete?
One of our largest projects is the Russian River Campground. This is a really popular campground in the Alaska region, and the Chugach National Forest plans to repair, improve, upgrade this world-class location over several years. They're going to fix the access road, they'll improve signs, information throughout the campground.
Another one is in Sitka, the Stargavan Recreation Area, which is only about 7 miles from downtown Sitka, so it's a very popular place to go. And this is another project that's going to be phased over multiple years, where they're going to improve the campground roads. They're going to fix some culverts to make them allow fish to pass.
How does the Great American Outdoors Act change Alaska's national forests over the next 5 years?
This funding is an incredible opportunity to improve some of our sites. It will help us get many places in better condition and allow us to create and improve on the world-class facilities that we are known for here. Not only will it help us repair some of the aging facilities, but there are some new features we will add as well to better serve our visitors and the locals.
Cool. Okay, now where? Right there. Yeah. So, so if you go on and just type in Great American Outdoors Act in Alaska, this will pop up. And it's got all the information about the act and what's the purpose, tons of information about anything you might want to know about how this came into being. As well as, you can dive in deep into a variety of things in here, and I'm not gonna drag you through it all. But what I do want to show you is, I think I went past it again. Yep, I went past it. Is where you can track all these projects. The national dashboard. Okay. So this is like a Survey 123 GIS site. So the legend on the right shows the projects in different phases, from draft to planning to design to completed. The size of the circle is how much funding is involved. And so as you can see, there's some big budget projects out in the lower 48. And it's kind of cool. I've spent a bit of time, obviously, curious about what everybody else is doing and dove into a lot of these projects, but I'm not going to do that right now. We're going to go to Alaska. So there's a lot of projects on the Tongass, and as you saw from that video, there's some big budget projects. For us, the Russian River Campground's probably the biggest one on the Chugach. But here on the Cordova Ranger District, we actually got funded initially for 14 projects, which included all these little trail projects, but 14 projects, which is pretty amazing. The reason we got funded for so many projects is we were able to demonstrate a huge backlog of deferred maintenance like no one else could, because Cordova doesn't get as much love as the road system does because they got more people over there. And a lot of the decisions that are made about funding has to do with how many people you're serving. And so we're always making a play for our underserved community. The Cordova Ranger District, in providing outdoor recreation, is the only entity in Cordova that does that. Nobody else does that. You go over on the Kenai, there's tons of there's the Chugach State Park, Forest Service, BLM, a variety of people that provide outdoor recreation opportunities. Forest Service in Cordova is the only thing.
Do you know what that design one is at Columbia Bay? It's not in the Cordova.
Oh, this right here.
Way up there.
Oh, that's on the Glacier Ranger District. So that is, all right. Is that what you meant right up here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he clicked on it.
It's even outside.
There you go. So recreation toilet replacement. Oh, that's a badly placed.
Yeah, that's a,
Somebody put that in the wrong spot.
yeah, yeah.
Hey,
I was
their
gonna say, if
GIS
you get a
was
toilet out there, we should be able to get a toilet in Saddle.
Look at that.
Yeah.
$430,000 for a toilet up on top of a mountain.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
almost 800.
So what's that say? So it says, sorry.
Yeah, almost 800.
Private place multiple. Oh, so this is the multiple. Okay, this is the multiple. I don't know why that ended up there. So we're actually getting 2 outhouses out of this project, but this is multiple outhouses throughout the Chugach.
So they just centered the dot.
Yeah. So this way, Chugach.
This spot doesn't have any dots competing with it, we'll put it here.
It's funny because I'm not.
Put
I'm
it on
not.
the water. Forest Service.
So let's see. What should we look at?
Well, there's something that says work completed,
Work.
work in progress, and then there's one that says work completed.
Let's see. This always bugs me on this thing. It doesn't let me.
Oh, you can't click on it once it gets bigger?
No, just scaling the writing to get the screen.
There you go. So that's Heaney Ridge Trail, and that one is 100% completed. And what's cool about this is we provide photos in our reports to be able to put out there to the public as well on what we're doing. And then, yeah, just description about the money that was used, the amount of deferred maintenance that was accomplished. Yeah, I mean, pretty basic information, but this is the description. When we originally proposed this project, the work that's described in this paragraph here is what we put out to say this is what we're intending to do with the money that you would give us to do this project. I have to say, things got really expensive, as we all know, right after COVID, and we did a lot of this project planning during COVID, assuming prices are going to be whatever they would have normally been. Wow, man, things are like tripled and quadrupled over what we ever thought they were going to cost. So we actually de-scoped a lot of work. So that Heaney Ridge Trail, a lot of the work we identified that we didn't actually get to, we just ran out of money. So a lot of those projects are definitely in that same boat. But what's cool is also if you want to look at something that's more of a, I don't know, design style, this you can go to any of these projects and dive in a little deeper into the dashboard.
It's going on before.
A cup of tea handy when you get in.
Huh.
So while we're waiting, Dave, in that video, they mentioned the Lake Elsner Trail.
Yes.
Is that something that you guys are looking at?
That's one of the ones that, as I was describing for Heaney. Heaney, we did quite a bit of it. Lake Elsner is a 6-mile trail, right? We did maybe a mile of it. Because we were also, that trail, I would say, so we have different class trails, class 1 through 5. Class 1 is like basically just using a map and compass and maybe some blazes on a tree to know where you're going. Class 3 is like a lot of our trails we have where we have constructed features on it, a distinct tread, you know where you're going. That trail didn't exist anymore. So we're trying to build it back into what we normally would have, like a Heaney Ridge Trail or a Powder Creek Trail. And so the amount of work we did on it sucked up all the money on that first mile. But that first mile is gorgeous. So our hope is we're going to go back out. That's one of the projects that we actually identified that the money requested wasn't nearly enough to get it done. And if we have this next round of GAOA funding that might come online, that project is going to go back in for more funding. Heaney Ridge Trail, Sand Trail, a couple of those go back in for more funding. We had to de-scope quite a bit of the Alleganic Boardwalk, because we were going to do 2 covered structures out of Alleganic, as well as the new outhouse. We were going to add 2 additional sites. We have 4 out there now. We're going to add 2 additional sites. We had to cut all that because we just didn't have enough money.
Well, it needs the additional sites, we've been out there trying to, you have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's one of the only places that people can overnight camp on the Delta right now.
So on that map there, it looks like America's divided into regions, and is Alaska one region?
Yes, it is, yes.
Must be kind of tough for competition with.
there was a period of time that it was understood throughout the National Forest Service that Alaska was unique enough where when we would go in to justify our funding needs, the fact that we're remote, everything is off the road system, things are just more expensive, we actually, for the longest time, had our own funding line within the Forest Service, Region 10 did, for a long time. That all changed about 5-8 years ago. So now we're battling it out with everybody else. But there was a long time where we definitely, in general, didn't do bad. Yeah. I mean, projects like, we call them the Big Three. It was mile 10, 22 mile, and then everything we did out at Child's Glacier, the original work we did at Child's Glacier. The funding we got for that, I mean, if we were competing with everybody else back in the late 80s, early 90s, no way we would have been able to afford that. And we wouldn't have got the money to do that because we just didn't have the type of use they have in the lower 48. But GAOA, what's really cool about it is, one, it's supposed to target deferred maintenance needs, and we showed a lot of that. Two, you're allowed to use the money to enhance recreation sites, whereas most of the money that we go after can only allow you to replace existing infrastructure. So like building covered structures and proposing 2 of them even out there and building additional sites, GAOA allows that where most other funding sources would not let you do that. It's all about the money though. I mean, we all have all these amazing ideas, but they go nowhere unless you get the money to do it. And again, I also want to emphasize all of these projects, everything that we're doing out there, there's opportunity for the public to weigh in and provide comments. So it's definitely, I've got reams and reams of comments from all over, all over South Central about our projects. People that don't even live here that had ideas about what was a good idea, a bad idea, what we should do. You know, people that have visited but not live here necessarily. So, which is really the way it should be. Everybody should have a voice in how we're conducting ourselves. But that's all I had. Yeah.
Dave, it seems the last couple of springs there was a group here called Alaska Trails. There was a vehicle, and I don't know exactly what all they were doing, but have we seen any increase in use from their advertisement?
So yeah, Alaska Trails was a group that we employed out of Anchorage to do, they're a professional trail crew that we had here in Cordova. Alaska Trails is based out of Anchorage. A guy named Steve Cleary is the director of that program. And primarily those guys were doing, most of the trail work they were doing was in the Chugach State Park. But right after COVID, and then when all this money started coming online, there weren't nearly enough human resources to implement these projects. So for here in Cordova, we got all this money and nobody to do it. We went out and tried to get anybody we could find that could help us do the work. And we reached out to Steve Cleary, and this is something he didn't do previously. He's like, all right, I can fashion something similar to like Trail Mix does down in Southeast. They're a professional, they're an organization that provides professional trail crews to do work. So he's been slowly crafting this organization to provide that type of service. So that's who you saw. We've had him here 3 different years doing trail work for us.
Well, also too, I think it's very interesting that your audience here, I can pretty confidently say, are all senior citizens.
Excuse me.
Well, you know,
On average, you're still there.
but you're the, like the administrator, you're not part of.
Well, I'm still watching.
And it'll
Take it as a compliment.
As a senior either.
I'm in denial.
Well, I'm really glad you all took your beautiful evening to come hang out here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everyone.